Hello and welcome to the second episode of Vasily Krysovcast. In this episode, we have a 2 versus 2 match on Highway to Oslo, between two pubbies and me and a friend, Sean Revan. I really like this match just simply because it really demonstrates how, even if you have good tactics, you can still lose if you don't actually have a matching strategy which will actually bring you the victory of which you need. I'm also going to speed up the match a little and just kind of leave it playing quite quickly because this is just going to be a short and dirty video because there's not really that much individual play that needs to be focused on. And also, thankfully, due to the fact that this is a pretty small map, I can just mostly keep the view centered up here and you can get a pretty solid coverage as to what's going on everywhere on the map at the same time. Now, I've done my usual ground push force, mostly tanks with some AA support, and Sean has also done the same, because we both like to kind of take things on the ground, rather than go for the helicopter rush, which is part of the usual meta, which can be seen, oddly enough, on the Blue 4 side, which is very much helicopter dependent. So, going for zones using helicopters is usually faster, but has the problem of that unless you have very solid air force or helicopter forces backing them up, by the time your own reinforcements will get there, like tractor wheeled units, so has the enemy. And if the enemy has really gone all out on their ground forces in such a way, then it means that they can often just knock you straight out of the field straight away. Because what happens to the US Marines in Echo is very instructive. They just simply get shot apart by cannon fire from the tanks, having achieved nothing. However, as we can see on the entry point to Foxtrot, they've done a helicopter insertion of some Marines and small teams, which end up being a real bastard to clean out, and I never quite successfully kicked them off that point. However, it also means that that player, Sweet Dirty, never actually really contests me on Echo until it is too late. And since this is conquest, not destruction, that's quite the mistake to make. Because, while we're sitting there actually winning the battle, they're getting bogged down in a useless little skirmish that I forced on them by just spawning units directly in on Foxtrot and moving them in from our original spawn point as well. However, in hindsight, what I should have done upon realizing that they had put so many points on the Foxtrot entry, I should have actually just continued to push forward into Bravo, because as you can see here, if I just simply kept pushing into there, I would have kicked him off that zone there, and then the entire force that was along that flank there would have just been absolutely cut off and unable to really reinforce themselves. And then I would have been able to set up my own defensive line around Bravo. And of course, that would have meant that Charlie would be in a rather poor position by extension. But hey, if wishes were fishes. Another thing I possibly should have done was also, instead of trying to actually counter-push the enemy forces that are around the spawn-in point of Foxtrot, I should have instead set up a defensive line between them and the actual main zone of Foxtrot, with some scouting forces along here as well, because that would have bottled those forces up, and all the extra forces that he kept pushing into that area would have just been wasted points, having achieved nothing. And that would have allowed me to save up quite a few points rather than kind of just pissing them away in the forest fight, and then build up a armoured reserve that I could have then just kept hidden around here, which could have been just held in place, and I could wait for the enemy to move in and show their hand basically, because since this is a small tight map with lower points values, only 500 points to victory, there would have been a certain point where they had to attack us, and that would have been pretty much an all or nothing venture. However, as an interesting aside, this little battle has really shown off to me how absolutely goddamn powerful small teams can be in the right situation. Like these small teams that are hidden here and here both have 20 RPM, and those smalls hit like dump trucks. So it's really hard to actually sort of get rid of these bastards once they get into a tight area with any sort of vehicle, which is kind of their whole point. Now, I've been kind of picked apart here in Echo. Unfortunately, I zoomed away when I actually lost my two T64 BVs with some poor play. However, of course, Dirty is not really doing much to exploit the fact that I'm really weak at the moment, and that really causes them problems. And also, I'd like to show that my friend Sean Revan has managed to get some hero VDV into the back area of their map, which I haven't actually seen a lot of it happening in Airland Battle compared to European Escalation. Back in European Escalation, on this map, which was known as Hell's Highway, there was constant skirmishing along the back areas with Czech paratroopers, Spec Ops teams, Delta Force, all going around the enemy's back areas, trying to find artillery units and command vehicles to snipe out. Because since the main game mode then was destruction, those were the two big things that you really had to focus on taking out. Also, this coastal area here was actually a entirely separate valley, which was blocked off by a forest along this here, and that meant that there was this huge ongoing continuous road that would actually go all the way back into the enemy spawn, both ways. But of course, only the lightest of picket forces there, and you'd be able to know that it's coming. And not only that, by the time it actually gets there, the 500 or so points that you put towards that group ends up just getting there too late, getting to the enemy base too late for it to have any effect upon the fight, even if they're in wheeled transports. Now, as we can see here around the Foxtrot call-in point, I'm just basically throwing some light screening units at them to just keep them preoccupied and try to make it so that the forces around the call-in are temporarily weak enough that I can actually try and force them off and start actually directly deploying my own units there. I never did quite get successful around there. However, this meant that Dirty was unable to really shift his attention towards doing something a bit more useful, such as taking Echo from me, which is currently only held by 2 Motor Strelki. I mentioned this before in my last video, that player attention is one of the very much limiting factors that you can exploit when engaging the enemy. So in this case, by actually engaging him in this fight, which was tactically important but strategically unsound, it meant that he was basically locked into a fight which doesn't really do much towards helping him reach his objectives. Not really much going on in Delta, because from memory, admittedly this wasn't my flank, but from memory, ML093 didn't really push that hard on Shan, and Shan made excellent use of elastic defense in order to often defeat these pushes. And of course the little occasional bit of help of my T80U popping up to shoot some dudes. So those VDV getting ready to take out that command vehicle, which they will do pretty soon, which is really helpful because it meant that the periodic heavy air attacks that Dirty would be launching against my little counter pushing around Foxtrot here would be cut off, of course. And here's the T80U taking out the Leopard and these chieftains. Reversing him back so that he can't get shot by the chieftains. Thunderbolt comes in, only gets one hit, dies, and I end up backing this guy off in order to get him repaired. Sean Revan counter-attack pushes with BMPs and T64s, and, the enemy never got into Delta. Another nice thing about this map is that often this main highway that goes all the way across the map is often very lightly defended, so sometimes it's worth it just simply taking 4 units of a platoon strength of riflemen in wheeled transports and just throwing them straight down the road, because sometimes you can get lucky and just, you know, oh hey guys, here's the enemy artillery park, let's wipe that out. Or you can get it into their original spawn itself and cut off their air or ground reinforcements from that direction. Oop, and here's the VDV in Alpha, almost ready to take out that command jeep. And since also this is Conquest as well, that means that we end up actually getting +2 instead of just +1, which really speeds up the points gain in our favour. Not to mention the disruption effect of taking out the enemy air corridor in this way. And funnily enough, the enemy doesn't seem to really do much to try and dig out these VDV. At best, they send a 2 platoons of Bradley infantry, but then don't really kind of try their damnedest to root them out. It's really weird. Also, another thing that I should have done was actually call in my artillery units so that I could actually take out these M110s. However, the M110s didn't tend to fire that much. I guess the enemy kept forgetting about the fact that they had them. So they were kind of like, if they want to blow all their supplies on maintaining them, power to them. Which is oddly enough actually quite a good thing if you notice that the enemy has a huge shit ton of rocket launchers back in their spawn area. Don't kill them. All they're doing with firing rocket artillery from maximum range instead of at minimum range is just pissing away supply units. So it's often more beneficial to let them basically hang themselves out to dry in that fashion. Bit of a push happening here on Delta, however at 80% points in favour of Red 4. Not really much that it will accomplish because there's a lot of solid forces defending Delta. Echo is falling towards the enemy, however this taking out the command vehicle that they had coming in, just only a jeep, meant that they're not getting that point income to actually stop their bleeding, and this VDV are still ready to take out enemy command vehicles such as this one here, which ends up happening. And the attack fails. Good job, Sean. I finally get my artillery up as well, because I thought I might need it to snipe out the command jeeps that the Sweet Dirty had kept moving into Echo. And I also build up some tanks, which I end up deploying around here as a way of countering them to stop them from causing a huge breakthrough on me. Because a couple of ultra heavy tanks like T-80Us is a great way of stopping the enemy from pushing on you, because often they don't expect it. After having taken a zone, they think, okay, there's only going to be light defenders after this point. And then of course Soviet beast unit T-80U shows up and shows them that no, they cannot pass. So here we have it, a very funny thing. VDV takes out a Gepard in their own area, and the Bradleys just keep on rolling through, absolutely caring not for it. And then the VDV move in and kill this command vehicle, and the Bradleys they kind of go back, but then they don't really scout. They just kind of drive around here and not really look for it. They don't even drop off their infantry to try and find them. Yep, see, they just kind of drive up here and not to where the command vehicle was, and then they just drive away again. It's utterly bizarre. I just don't understand how they decided this was a good course of action. Now, I'd just moved some... I kept my BRM here. Oop, and game over. Much quicker than I thought it would be. Well, Thanks for watching, and in summary, the Blue 4 team definitely knew how to play well. You can see this in their kills to losses ratios, which were pretty solid in the case of Sweet Dirty, but not having a sort of strategic plan that they actually were going to try and execute really caused them to lose this one, as they didn't really focus on what would actually bring them direct victory. They kept, in case of Sweet Dirty, he just didn't really focus on victory. He just kind of got bogged down into some skirmishes which didn't achieve anything towards the goal of winning. Like, me and Sean both took actually pretty terrible losses, but hey, we won the match, and that's what's important. Until next time, everyone.